Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. And today I'll be sharing some true ghost stories from the web. Thank you all for being here, whether it's for the live stream. I see you all there in chat. Thank you. Or if you listen to the podcast feed or the YouTube video, I appreciate all of the support. If you would like to find all the episodes of the podcast or any social media links or ways to donate or other ways to contact me, you can find all of those at the podcast page, which is salcidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always looking to hear from you all, whether it's comments or questions or topic suggestions for shows, or if you have stories of experiences, whether they're your own or others that you trust. You can always send those in a text format, and I can read them on the show. Or if you would like to, you could appear on the show with me in Discord here, where I do the live streams, and we could go over your experiences live on the show, and that's always interesting to do because it's more like a conversation. I really enjoy that, listening to that, and the one time I've done that, a couple times I've done that, I guess it has been a lot of fun. So, but I think that'll cover it. As I was saying in chat before I started here, I didn't get to edit the stories for today, so forgive me if I stumble a bit here and there, but hopefully it'll still be okay. Also, some of these stories are a bit longer, so we may not get through a lot of stories total today, but they're still interesting, so hopefully you all enjoy them. And I believe with that, looks like everything is running as well as it can. I think I can get on to the stories. So, I get to the Word file. I'm really glad to be here. I almost canceled the show today, but I really don't like doing that, so I'm glad I was able to still do this. So this one says, this is one of the more recent paranormal encounters that I've experienced in recent years. So my family and I live out in the woods, a little bit off of the main road. I often have a habit of walking down the driveway at night for that cold night air because I find it soothing. Anyway, we have a storage building on the right side of our house, and the door to it is always closed. I was preparing to walk back when I noticed from a distance the storage building's light was on and the door was open. Oh no, I thought, did I leave that open? But I hadn't gone anywhere near it. I looked more closely, and I very clearly saw what looked like the black silhouette of a man, facing perfectly in my direction. Do note that this silhouette or shadow figure was standing in a bright lit room inside of the storage building. It was very easily visible and very clear to make out. I stared at it for several minutes, and it didn't move or disappear. So I walked back down the driveway and to the storage building. The door was still wide open, and the light was still on. But the shadow figure had completely vanished by the time I arrived. I went to the same spot where I had seen it standing, and looked to see if something may have been leaning against or hanging on the wall to make it appear to look like something was standing there. But no, nothing. There was nothing on the wall, no objects in that whole section of the area where the shadow figure had stood. There were also no shadows being cast in the spot where the figure stood, either. This happened last month sometime, if I recall. I know it was fairly recent, no more than a month and a half or so ago. And I firmly believe that what I saw was a shadow figure. No one came outside the entire time. I was the only one out there. Like I said, we live in the woods just off of the side of the road. You'd have to be crazy to be a stranger walking there in the dark at night with no streetlights. And as a side note regarding this area, and our woods specifically, my family and I have, or here, believe it to be haunted. It isn't uncommon to have a paranormal experience here, and many of us had them in this area growing up as kids. So that's an interesting one. Makes you wonder who or what was checking out that storage area and why. Unless it was some kind of a residual thing, but even then, that's um, doesn't say. I don't think that the light is always kept on, or the door obviously would not be kept open. So, um, but interesting story, and especially given that part at the end where they say that there's been other experiences. And eyes open here. Welcome back to the chat. Like I said, it's good to see you here again. I know people get busy, and so I'm always glad when anyone can be here. Eyes open says so many creepy things happen in the woods, and yeah, that does it does. That's that is true. So many stories um, take place in or near the woods, in one at least to some degree or other. It's, I was listening to a show the other day. They were talking about this idea that trees could possibly be not haunted, but because they're tied to the ground and there's energy, of course, flowing through everything, and that they could be somehow drawing beings there or drawing spirits there because of just the nature of I guess the just them being there. It makes me wonder about that. So yeah, it's an interesting idea that trees could be something that would lead to more activity. Something that I've never heard of until this other show I was listening to the other day on certain kinds of trees. I think they mentioned oak trees being important in folklore over in the UK as to being homes to spirits. So I might have to look into that. Oh wow, okay. Eyes Open says I've heard disembodied voices, seen a red light up my campsite, seen black shadowy things flying outside my tent. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot going on out there. Huh. Well, that's yeah, that's amazing. That so much. It's so funny because if people that maybe don't look into all this, they think, wow, that was only one trip. Okay, so my eyes open again. So many people just think of buildings and old houses as having strange things happen in them, but they're really strange things seem to happen everywhere. I mean, I'm sure you could look at almost any kind of setting and you could find stories about that setting. Whether it's by the water, of course, or by trees or forest, or here's a little spoiler for you all. I'm going to be looking into basically paranormal activity surrounding mountains. That's going to be a project coming up in a few weeks here. I'm going to probably do a series of shows, 2 or 3 shows on that, on the Friday show. It just seems like everywhere, just about. Um, it just has activity of one kind or another. So, oh, there we go. As Open says, there was a creepy pond across the road from our campsite. So it always comes back to water. Does seem like it. Always comes back to water. So, but anyway, we should probably get on to this next story here. But yeah, neat first story. So, I'll get on to this next one. This says, so I come from a very spiritual family. Both my mom and my aunt have mediumistic gifts. They experienced astral projection when sleeping since they were teenagers, and they've also seen spirits multiple times. We are from a spiritual Brazilian religion as well, so we are used to paranormal activity. What happened this week, though, was very intriguing because it involved my grandmother who had passed away. My grandma was very spiritual as well, and she died by the end of 2020 due to a heart attack. Both my aunt and mom still haven't recovered fully from her death yet, but they try not to show or talk about it so they don't make the rest of the family worried about them. Last Thursday, my mom was feeling down but didn't tell me or anyone the reason of her sadness was because she was missing my grandmother, because she felt her close and could even feel the smell of her perfume. Oops, hang on a second here. I think I'm hearing a sound, but that's okay. We can take care of that. There we go. Okay. So, I'll get back to the story here. Okay. Just gotta find my spot. Let me see here. Sorry about that. Okay, so okay, I found it. She was, I think it was the mom still. She was quiet about it. And her boyfriend visited us this weekend. On Saturday, my mom told my aunt's boyfriend about it, and he said the same thing happened. Excuse me. To my aunt. She was also sad for missing my grandma's presence, and felt her presence and perfume as well. On Thursday as well. Excuse me. Like I said, I'm kind of all over the place tonight. Says the next day, their old friend, who they haven't even spoken to in a long time, and didn't know anything about what happened, messaged her mom saying she dreamed about my grandma. During the dream, my grandmother asked her to tell my mom and my aunt that she was doing great, and they didn't need to worry, but she visited just because she was really missing them and wanted for a bit. And that's for that mom, so their mother. Um, and then they got confirmation from a friend that didn't even know about the. Sounds like the friend didn't even know about the grandmother's passing until then, I guess, which is interesting. So getting that confirmation without the friend talking to the mom and the aunt beforehand, just calling out of the blue like that. Um, that's also really amazing. Um, those dreams of contact with loved ones. I've heard of that before, where the person sends a dream to someone that it's not the loved ones, but it's someone close to them. And for a little while at first, I always wondered why that would be the case. But sometimes I wonder now, after hearing all these stories, similar stories, if it's not a way to verify that it's not just the living, the relatives that are still alive, imagining or thinking that they're imagining it, um, and then dismissing it, or being worried about having the dreams like that. So, and then yeah, that's possible. I think that's the case too. Eyes Open says when passed on relatives visit non-relatives, it always makes me think that they know it'd be too much to visit family, so they appear to someone removed from the situation to make it easier on loved ones to hear the message. And yeah, I think that's part of it too. I think it can always be a mixture of both, um, depending on the situation. So, um, so yeah, neat story there. But but yeah, so thank y'all for being here. I got some more here. Obviously, I'm not stopping yet. Like I said, we may only get through a few stories today because the ones I found today all were pretty long, except for like one or two. But the most of them were longer stories. So, but I don't mind as long as they're interesting. And speaking of that, we'll go to this next story. This one says, my memory of this event is very crisp. I remember it very vividly just because of how odd and traumatic it was. A couple of years ago, my family, which consisted of my dad, mom, little brother, uncle, aunt, and their two children, as well as my other uncle and his wife, were at church on a Sunday afternoon. It was just a regular Sunday Mass, not anything special. What I remember happening was that all of a sudden we left in the middle of the service. We were walking out and going to the parking lot, and I remember that my aunt was hysterical. She was crying and hugging my dad. My dad, almost in tears as well. I was around 7 at the time, so I was just really puzzled and confused. But I eventually forgot about it and went on about my day. Years passed, and the topic came up at a family gathering. What really happened that day still creeps me out, and how my family just talks about it now as if it weren't such a weird thing to have experienced is beyond me. But anyway, on that Sunday, my family was leaning on one of the walls of the building facing the priest who was giving a lecture. Just because it was a really busy day there, and there weren't any seats left. About 30 minutes into Mass, my aunt notices a guy who looks almost identical to my deceased uncle in the crowd. She is stunned and elbows my dad to show him what she's looking at. The man she was pointing at was fortunate enough to have gotten a seat, and he was in one of the rows on a bench, just sitting there. As my dad is staring at this guy, puzzled and in complete shock, the guy looks up at my dad, makes eye contact, and smiles. And then he just looks back at the priest who's giving the lecture. My dad freaks out, and so does my aunt, who noticed that the guy was an exact copy of my deceased uncle. The guy all of a sudden gets up, excuses himself and from the people that he has to cross in order to get out of the row, and he walks towards an exit. As soon as he does, my other uncle walks on after him in an attempt to catch up with him and apologize for creeping him out. My uncle claims he followed him up to the exit, where he turned a corner and ended up losing sight of him. Now that's already weird, but my uncle also claims he noticed a scar on the man's left forearm that he knew for a fact my deceased uncle had from a firework accident when he was little. Ever since then, they never really saw the guy again. Some family members of ours have claimed that they've seen someone who looks exactly like my dead uncle, but who knows if it's the same guy we saw that day. Maybe it was his last attempt at saying goodbye to his siblings. Who knows? Or maybe it was just some random guy. So, that's it for that one. That's quite the event to have happen in the middle of a church like that. In the middle of a bunch of people, it makes me wonder how many people saw this guy besides the family. I wonder if the people that this guy had to pass by in that row, if they even felt him, or heard him. It's hard to say. There's not enough detail there to really know for sure. But so that's a really amazing story there. Especially that feature, that scar on his arm. So I just thought that's just not even so much the fact that this family may have seen, I don't know, spirit of this relative possibly, but that it happened in the middle of a crowd like that is just really that's really interesting to me, and it just again brings up questions about if anyone else in the church noticed him. Excuse me. That's what I keep coming back to with that one. But yeah, so I had to share that because that sounds like multiple witnesses. So even if it wasn't necessarily him, who was it and how did they disappear? So interesting. As Open says, after my ex passed, I kept getting clients that looked like him and or would go by his name. Excuse me, which wasn't a normal name. He went by a Tank. Interesting. So yeah, I thought that was a amazing one there. So let's see. I think we can get to at least one more. Like I said, I don't think this is going to be a real long episode today, but we can get to at least one more. Also, funny enough, it's not that difficult to just I don't know if I'm getting more used to this or not, but it's reading these stories, even though they're not edited, is not too bad. So I may have to keep that in mind from now on. Anyway, this one says it's currently 4 a.m. 4 a.m. while I'm writing this. Right now, my very close friend is sleeping over at my house, and we were about to go to sleep until from my dresser, a ring fell out of nowhere, and we thought it was weird, but fell asleep anyway. Then at exactly 3:49, we woke up at the same time and saw that my TV was on. It was playing a YouTube video. Oops, I normally don't say that brand name, but oh well. And for a second, I thought maybe we fell asleep with the TV on. So I looked at the history, and there were no videos there that would have been playing while we were sleeping. Then I realized I had the TV off before we slept, and the remote was across the room, so there's no way we could have accidentally clicked it. We tried going back to sleep, and my friend fell asleep, but I couldn't, so here I am now. If there's anything else, I'll try and update, but tell me what you think. And then it says, I forgot to mention it's really hot in the room right now. So there's a case of a story, basically, of an experience that happened almost as the writer, right before the writer was going over what happened. First thing I wonder is the ring that fell off the dresser, was that someone's? Did it belong to the writer or to their friend? There's a lack of detail there. I wonder about that. If it was just one of theirs that was on the dresser and somehow it shouldn't have fallen off, but it did. Excuse me. Or if it was a strange ring that they didn't have, and it just appeared, which would be even that'd be even more unusual. I would guess, but and then having the video playing when the TV hadn't even been on. I don't know that part. Devices can turn on their own sometimes, although I don't know if they would necessarily start playing a video without buttons being pressed. So that part I'm not so sure about. I don't know enough about that to say for sure, but interesting little story there. Yeah, can practice makes perfect. Well, definitely had some practice now. That's for sure. So yeah, I thought that was a neat story. It's interesting. I wonder what the correlation is, if there's any, with the heat, with it being hotter in the room. Sometimes you hear about cold spots, but every once in a while you will hear about heat. Vicky says, my sister had my oldest brother visit her on her computer after passing. Interesting. So, but yeah, those visits are they're something else. I've had a few myself, and yeah, pretty amazing. It makes you wonder, as time goes on, if there's not going to be more and more interactions between paranormal and computers and people, as the computers get more and more prevalent, I guess, out there, and more. If you think of the number of people, and of course not everything is a human spirit, but if you think of the number of people over time now, as the further on we get into the future, more and more people will have knowledge of how to use computers. And so I wonder if that's going to lead to more of those kinds of stories eventually. Right now, they only pop up once in a while, but I could see that happening. Um, yeah, APOC. Welcome, APOC. I saw you earlier. Um, says it's an electrical device. If EVPs happen, why not computers? Yeah. Yep. So very neat story there. But I do have some stories left, and I think we're going to end it here today. I'll save these other 4 stories for tomorrow, and we'll go from there. So thank you all again for being here. I always appreciate it, like I said, whether it's for the live stream or the podcast feed or the YouTube video. Tomorrow night will be more true ghost stories from the web, and I've already gone over plans for the rest of the week. So, but yeah, it was great to read these stories and talk about them with you all as always. So, until next time, have a good night, and I'll see you all tomorrow on Salcedo Paranormal.